We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Saturday, and on Saturdays, typically, we bring in Ed. And Ed, I got to tell you, I'm relieved to see you because there's so much fucked up shit. We were just talking about that before. There were days back in the old days when there was no news or slow news days. Never once in the 5 years I've been doing this and the TikToks that I've had a slow news day. I'm glad we get our elder statesmen in to make some fucking sense of this all.
Well, everything old is new again, they say. And so I have a perspective that's 10 years older than yours, for example. I lived through an era that wasn't that different from what we have now. People have just forgotten that the 1950s were a very repressive era. They went after the left big time, labeling everybody communist, everybody that deviated even slightly from the Republican line was pointed out as some sort of threat to the country. So this is not new to me. I remember it, and I remember when it started to break apart in the '60s, and I'm seeing those cracks starting now. They're small, but they're going to happen.
Well, yeah, that's been exactly my point. I did a TikTok about it. And the thing about the 50s were I see what time we're in right now, and it's kind of a combination, a mix, if you will, of the 50s and the 60s, because we
Yeah,
have the like the McCarthyism back in the 50s and some of the other oppressive times. But then we get the turmoil and turbulence of the 1960s. They've taken the 50s and 60s and made them into the 2020s, and it's fucked up, quite frankly. But you're talking
yeah.
about the cracks. Yeah,
Go
it's
ahead.
just well, you were talking about the cracks,
Yeah.
and I hate to be that guy that says, "Well, there's sunshine over the hill," and keep saying that if it's not true. But we've gone through a lot of shit with Donald Trump, and recently some things have happened that I see the cracks too. First of all, the Jimmy Kimmel thing.
Yes.
He did it to Stephen Colbert. Wasn't quite the same situation, but then Kimmel comes out, and the fucking world falls apart, and Disney gets taken down. That's definitely a sign.
Yeah, I would.
James,
I
go
would.
ahead.
You finish your thought. I don't want to interrupt
All
you.
I'm
I do
saying
have
is
something to say about that. Yeah.
The James Comey thing, the James
Yeah.
Comey thing is really getting some backlash, both from the right and the left, because it's clearly weaponization and abuse of power. And the last thing is Donald Trump, and we're going to get to all these things. Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth, they're bringing in those 800 generals, which is making everybody crazy. What this strikes me as is he's really at that point where he's cornered. He doesn't know what to do, so he's doing fucking everything, and he's failing at everything. And that's where I see the cracks too. But go
Yeah.
ahead.
That's pretty much it. I mean, he got his second term. He got his Project 2025 to try and enact, and but then it came up against his flat out incompetence. I mean, this is a guy who cannot listen to advice. He puts incompetent people in place and then is surprised that they can't do the job, even what he wants done. So there is some cracks there. But what I'm seeing, the canary in the coal mine that I am seeing, is Ted Cruz. Here
Yeah.
is a guy who has kissed Trump's butt for 8, 10 years now. After he ran against him for the nomination, and Trump called him everything and even insulted his wife and so forth. And then Ted Cruz knuckled under, and he's been basically a straight up trooper ever since for Trump. Right?
Right.
Suddenly, he comes out for freedom of the press or freedom of speech, right? That tells me he sees, because like him or not, and I don't, he is an intelligent person. And for the wrong things, of course. I mean, he is a flawed individual. He's evil, but he's not stupid. He sees where this is going. He sees that there will be pushback and that there's no way to defend it, or he would have been right in there. Let's face it, he's always there defending school shootings and that sort of thing. So he has no real morality. But he either sees that he can advance his own career in some way or other, or he has to defend himself from the fall. which take your pick.
Well,
Uh,
there's another part of it too that I think people are recognizing. I've heard a couple people suggest it. It's okay. You want to take down Jimmy Kimmel. You want to control the media. You want to do this. Finally, some of these people are looking at the 2026 midterms and maybe 2028. And guess what? At some point in the future, the Democrats will get control. So if they're allowed to do this now, theoretically, the Democrats could say, you know, we're tired of Fox News. Let's get rid of them. Let's get
yeah,
rid of Sean Hannity.
yeah.
Let's get rid of Ben Shapiro. So they have a little foresight. And this is nothing that the Republicans ever had before. They just do whatever and they don't think about it. But now I think it's starting to hit home, and they're a little worried about their prospects if they continue down this channel.
That's right. I mean, if what Jimmy Kimmel said, which was nothing, let's face it, it was mainly because
Yeah,
what he said about Trump, not what he said about Charlie Kirk, because he essentially said nothing. But then you have Brian Kilmeade making just an outrageous suggestion that they give lethal injections to homeless people, just
right.
kill them, in his words. And there's been no pushback. I mean, he in theory sort of apologized, but there was he faced no repercussions, wasn't even taken off the air as far as I can see, and so it's a glaring um, black and white example of one side being treated one way and another side being treated another. It can't stand. Even in the face of the MAGA people, they have to be able to see that. And I'm guessing that well, there's a number of people in the Republican Party seeing that they're just about to lose the midterms. It looks like the Epstein files will have to be released because we just had a change and we had an off-year election that changed the makeup so that they'll get 218 votes in the House to release those files and so forth. So lots of things are crumbling here. I did want to say about Colbert, though, it was slightly different in that it came from the company and it wasn't the FCC chiming in to say, get rid of this guy or anything. It's he was treated differently. I wish people would extend the boycott from Disney into the company that controls Colbert, because quite frankly, they did it for the same reason. They're trying to merge, and they didn't want that to be shut down by the FCC. So that's why they caved and did not renew the contract. And it was a signal, and they could still back off from that, and they should be forced to.
But, you know, the thing about it is, if you compare Colbert to Kimmel, it was just a expected escalation
Mm-hmm.
by somebody like Donald Trump when he feels the pressure. I mean, the difference between Colbert is they said, we're going to cancel this thing at the end of his contract. He gets to stay on. It's just a money thing. But we all know that it was pressure from Donald Trump and
Right,
affecting the merger and all that stuff. But for whatever reason, with Jimmy Kimmel, Donald Trump wasn't willing to play the game that would work. He
right.
decided to escalate it and flex his muscle if he thought he had some. And so he says, I want him off now. They just kick him off, hit willy nilly. And all around, that's a bad choice, both for the network and both for Donald Trump, because it really exposes them for what they were trying to hide when they booted off Colbert. They basically said, we got Colbert off, and this is how we fucking did it, and they
Yeah.
did it faster and escalated the situation. And ultimately, that's bad for Donald Trump, and that's typical of Donald Trump because he always fucks it up.
Exactly. And that's what I'm talking about here. Those are the cracks I see. This incompetence, this total incompetence. We're seeing him staying up late again and, posting all kinds of wacky shit overnight that always winds up, stirring the pot and so forth. But he's doing that at 3 a.m. again. So um, and then we see him on the world stage. We see him go in for a 15-minute speech at the UN and ramble for an hour and insult every country in the world and demand a peace prize and so forth, which he wants so bad that it can't be given to him just because he wants it so much.
Well, that's the thing. You know, you and I are older, and we've seen a lot of speeches by president, and that speech given in front of the UN easily has to be the most embarrassing speech I've ever seen any politician give, let alone an American politician. And you could see the people in the crowd or hear the reports afterwards that he made an absolute fool of himself and also made a fool of this country. I can't believe his handlers allow him to do this. Are they so much sycophants that they'll just let him do whatever the fuck he wants? And if they
Yeah.
do, that's the ultimate demise of Donald Trump, if he's allowed to do whatever he wants because he makes bad choices.
And maybe that's what they think. Maybe they think we've used this good guy as much as we can. Now he is a total loser, that he cannot advance our cause anymore. And a matter of fact, he inhibits it. Because remember, it's not his handlers that are calling the shots. It's the guys who were standing behind him at the inauguration. It's the
Right.
oligarchs. They have a vision for this country and for the world, quite frankly, that does
Yeah.
not jive with democracy in any way. And they want he's a useful tool, or he was a useful tool. They're getting their tax cut. They're getting everything they want. And why do they need him anymore? He obviously is not going to survive his presidency. Forget 2028. He's not going to make it out of this year. That's still my prediction. And I mean, right now it's weekends at Bernie's. I don't know what they're shooting him up with to get him to be able to function, but it's something that is potent enough that he can cruise for an hour or so, and then he goes down for a few days, right? I
Yeah.
mean, we
Yeah.
we see him having times when he's not even around. They'll show a picture of him supposedly going out to play golf or something, but we don't really know.
Uh,
Um,
we were. It's been a bad week for dumb fucks at the UN. Donald
yeah,
Trump went up, embarrassed himself.
Netanyahu.
Benjamin Netanyahu shows up yesterday, and half the place walks out because they're tired of his bullshit. And
Yeah,
let's be honest. You, I'm not talking badly about Israel. I'm not anti-Semitic, and if you think I'm anti-Semitic, don't even fucking care because what I say stands on its own. But that fucker is a war criminal. That
yeah,
guy is a horrible person,
yeah.
much like our leader is a bad guy and a horrible person. So we've got room to talk because we got our own. But Benjamin Netanyahu had people walking out on him. And there's got to be some concerns in Israel because Israel's always got this favorite son situation. Everybody bows to Israel, everybody gives Israel money. But now people are saying, what the fuck are you doing? We're talking
Yeah.
about genocide. We're talking about this crazy shit. And Benjamin Netanyahu uh, is probably turning people against Israel more than anything.
This is true. I mean, other than when Bill Clinton intervened in Europe, remember uh, when the genocide was taking place there during his
Yeah.
term. I can't think of another time the United States has ever taken a stand against genocide. I'm sorry to say it, but we just don't do it. We decry it. We look back on it and say, oh, this was terrible and so forth, whether it was in Africa, wherever it is. We turn a blind eye to it, and it's business as usual. Now, Israel, there we do have a special relationship with Israel, even more so than we do with Britain, uh, and a lot of it has to do with um, maybe guilt about the Holocaust. It has to do with international finance. It has to do with all sorts of things. I firmly believe, and as matter of fact, I know this to be true, that Israel is very much divided about what's going on there.
Well,
Sure,
sure.
they want to be secure in their country. They don't want to be killed. Everybody has that right. At the same time, they see what's happening there and they're appalled by it too. The same with Jewish people here in the United States. They want to preserve the state of Israel. They think it should be safe there, and it should be. At the same time, they see what's happening in Gaza. So at this point, for us not to exercise some degree of control there, when we are bankrolling that war, we are providing the weapons, we are heavily invested in it, is morally repugnant for us not to put pressure on them to get rid of Netanyahu, who, as you put it, is a war criminal. If you got rid of Putin, Netanyahu, the mullahs in Iran, and a few
Right.
others, this would be a much more peaceful planet.
Absolutely. I can tell you why we have this skewed opinion of Israel. It may be international finance, it may be guilt, but what it really comes down to is virtually everybody in our Congress gets money from APAC. They're
Absolutely.
obliged to APAC, and
Yeah.
then they do everything they can to cater to Israel. Now, I'm not saying we shouldn't cater to some things with Israel, but it's fucking everything. And to be honest with you, the fact that one country has that much money in the pockets of our Congress, that seems to be a security risk.
Yeah. Absolutely. And then we've done things over the years that we should not have simply for that reason. And what this all comes back to, of course, is that we need campaign finance reform so that that doesn't happen, that they are insulated from that kind of influence. Quite frankly, we should have a campaign finance system that gives each candidate a specified amount of money and says, that's it. When you're done, you're done. Spend it wisely.
Right.
And we
Right.
have limits on it. And we get rid of Citizens United and we get rid of dark money. And, we know that the Republican Party has received tremendous amounts of money from Russia funneled through the NRA. We know that, but we don't do anything about it. The NRA should be, everybody in the upper echelon should be in prison for treason, but they're not.
No, absolutely not. I I wanted to ask you this because you were in the military.
Yeah,
People are freaking the fuck out about this concept of uh, Pete Hegseth calling in maybe 800 generals and admirals and those sorts of things into Virginia, all in one spot next Tuesday. This apparently has never been done or hasn't been
no.
done very often, and it signals some pretty fucked up possibilities. Some people are saying, well, he's going to decapitate the military. He's got a war started. He's going to make them take a loyalty pledge. What's your gut reaction as to why they're doing this and why they're so secretive about it?
Well, you got me because it's insane. Number one, you got Pete Hegseth, who is in no way qualified for his job. And quite frankly, having served only 3 years in the military, I still know that the military looks to politicians with a great deal of contempt, quite frankly. And even if when it's one of their own, when it is one of their own, they're more likely, when it's an Eisenhower, when it's someone like that, or someone who has served at least, they are much more likely to listen attentively. Let's put it that way. Hegseth served, but for a short time, and he was not really in charge of anything. Okay, I mean he was a lower level, a lieutenant captain, whatever. But they have to feel insulted that this guy can order them around. These guys who've spent 30 years, 40 years working their way up through the ranks to achieve what they have to resent it. Now, the way the military works, it's divided into theaters, and each one has standing missions, right? And the only way that changes is if there's some sort of upheaval or something or other where they have to improvise, and otherwise they're doing the standing orders and they're doing essentially the same thing. They have a mission that is defined, and their job is to perform that mission every day, whatever it takes. And then they may have extraordinary situations where they have to do everything else. To have this sort of messing about by amateurs must be very irritating to them. And quite frankly, to call everybody in from all across the world, which is essentially what they're doing, is insanity.
Well, it's a security risk to say the least. And I try to look at the bright side of things sometimes. And I'm just curious if you get the sense too. Um, when narcissists are bullies, they will push and people will back up, and then they'll push farther and they will back up. But inevitably, when we're talking about a narcissist specifically, they don't know when to stop. They keep pushing until they've pushed too far. And then the
Yeah,
pushback happens. Case in point, Jimmy Kimmel. They
yeah,
weren't expecting that to happen.
no.
Disney wasn't expecting that to happen. So we're always hearing about the military. Well, they take a pledge to the oath, not the president. And people keep saying, when are they going to fucking stand up and say, fuck you, no, Donald Trump? And my
Um,
contention is when you go to this extent and bring 800 people in from all around the country, maybe that is the red line where they go, okay, this is fucked up. We're not doing this anymore. Do you have any sense that that might be true?
I would hope so, but my when I look at history, I don't see it happening very often. The Generally, when you rise to the top in the military, it's because you've towed the line. And quite frankly, most military officers tend to be fairly conservative. So they may actually approve of some of the stuff that's going on. I'm not sure. Generally, they try to remain above politics because their job is to receive the mission and to fulfill the mission, whether they're a general or a private. That is the general order. You know, your job is to fulfill the mission, and if your entire unit has to be wiped out to do it, that's what you do. I mean, it's unfortunate to say that, but it's quite frankly the truth, and it happens all the time. Patton was famous for saying that he was going to cross the Rhine if it took a boxcar full of dog tags to do it, and that is quite simply the way that generals think. Some have been better about it than Patton, of course, but still, it rings pretty much true. When you had the back in the 1920s, when you had the 30s, when you had the bonus army travel to Washington protesting, wanting to get their bonus from World War One, the military was unleashed upon them. They were gassed, run over by tanks, chased out of Washington, their settlement destroyed, even though they were doing this to their own, to veterans. I mean, the official line with these were communists. There were some in there, sure, but mostly it was just people who were trying to get the money they thought they were owed. Okay. Um, the difference was that Hoover unleashed the military. Later, when they returned, Roosevelt sent his wife, who talked to them and convinced them to join the CCC instead and wait for the bonus to be paid some years later. So that was the difference: being reasonable, treating veterans with care and with some sense of dignity. That's the difference between liberals and conservatives. But the military did not hesitate, and the people that did that to the bonus army were Eisenhower and Patton and all of the top rank that later served in World War II. These were the guys who turned on their own and in many cases killed them. So I don't expect that. We did see with the Nazis when the generals finally turned and tried to blow him up, Hitler, I mean, but that was extreme. I don't know if we're to that point yet.
I know. I understand about the standing orders and following orders and doing what you're told and towing the line and all that stuff. But we have that little thing called the oath of office that they always promote. We pledged an oath to office that we protect the Constitution and not a man. Um, I've always wondered where that fucking breaking point is because if we're not close to that breaking point and they don't do anything, then really what's the value in an oath if you can't follow through the oath? You can say I took all the orders, I did everything I was supposed to, like the Nazis did, but I didn't follow through and hold up the Constitution. To me, that's failure.
Yeah, it comes down to personal honor. Rommel, a very effective German general, eventually turned on Hitler and was part of the conspiracy against him.
Right.
Personal honor. If there are enough generals with personal honor, then it will happen. If there aren't, it won't. I always hold up Smedley Butler, who was the general in charge of the Marine Corps, was approached by certain industrialists, including Henry Ford and DuPont, to lead a coup against Roosevelt in the early days of his administration to put in place a fascist government like Italy at the time under Mussolini, in which the industrialists would have played a big part, which is what
Right.
fascism really is. It's a blend of corporation and government, right?
Right.
Smedley outed them. Roosevelt called him in and said, "Okay, I know what you were going to do. I'll either lock you up or you knock it off." And they chose to knock it off.
It's funny you make that comparison of how corporations come into the fascism role. And this may sound outlandish to some people, but when you look at a corporation and the people you who work in that corporation, in that instance, I don't know if I'd go as far as saying fascism, but they're certainly in a dictatorship. You
Yeah,
don't do what you're fucking told, you get fired.
yeah,
Except now we're talking about it on a governmental level. That makes sense that
exactly.
the Congress or that the corporations would be part of the whole fascism thing. Um, so, isn't there a security issue with having 800 top generals and admirals all in one spot with promotion of that event ahead of time? I mean, that
Well,
the
you
whole
would think
concept seems
so.
stupid.
You would think so. I mean, let's say China or Russia is watching and they've been thinking it would be a really good time, say China, this would be a really good time for us to invade Taiwan with all of the leadership out of their locations, with secondary people in charge and so forth. Uh, just with them, everything being disrupted by all these people traveling to Washington, be a nice time to do this, maybe. I mean, so sure, there's a danger there, just the danger of travel alone. Do we go a week without a plane crash now, or some sort of
No.
travel disaster? It's very rare. So if you've got 800 people all traveling to the same location, there's all kinds of things that could happen. It's stupid, especially considering that we live in an age where you and I are separated by 2,000 miles or 1,000 miles, and we are communicating face to face.
Yeah, exactly. That's the whole point of it though, is with these guys, it's never about substance, it's all about performance. And they
Yeah,
know that when it's they wouldn't have released the info if they didn't want the attention, and they want the attention. They're trying to send a message, and the fact that it's secretive causes more chaotic feelings and more concerns and more fear. And let's be honest, when we're talking about Trump or Republicans in general, fear is the bottom line. They want
absolutely.
to instill this fear constantly. So, and I see all these people flailing around going, oh my God, he's bringing 800 in. Are we going to get in another war? Are we going to do this? They're creating that turmoil and that fear, and that's exactly what they want. Here's something to always remember: whatever they're doing, whatever their plans are, I'll guarantee you they're going to fuck it up. One
Yeah.
way or another, it will fail because everything they've done previously has fucking failed. So I have some comfort in that sense. But in terms of security, I'm not just thinking about what might happen elsewhere in the world. I'm thinking you have 800 generals and admirals and Pete Hegseth and whoever else is showing up. Donnie Trump will probably show up to, let them each individually lick his boots. Hopefully that will be distasteful to them. But when you have all these people confined to a small area, you know, some kid with emotional problems, like with Charlie Kirk or in Butler or in Dallas, could come out there and pick a lot of them off.
Well, that's always a possibility. And you wonder now, too. Um, I see yesterday he called, a press conference and so forth, and all the quote law enforcement officials and his cabinet, such as they are, showed up to declare war on Antifa, an organization that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Which tells me they're going to go looking for their enemies like Comey, right? That's what they're going for. And I really believe that both the attempt on, I think all of these assassination attempts and so forth have to a certain extent been, I'm not going to say staged, I'm going to say that they were, and not even, they were facilitated. Let's put it that way. We heard yesterday that the FBI report says he was not shot by a bullet. They did say it may have been some sort of shrapnel or something. We've known all along he was not hit by a bullet. If you actually examine it, he was not shot. It's that simple. It was either staged or it was managed afterward to make it look good. The whole photograph, everything just smacks of something that was facilitated. Let's put it that way.
Well,
There's all kinds of questions about the Kirk shooting and this latest one where they were shooting where the kid was shooting at Antifa. There's all kinds of things when you have unstable young men that can be identified and perhaps facilitated into what they do.
well, that's the thing. I was talking to the history girl Denise yesterday, and I
Mm-hmm.
say girl with affection.
Yeah,
I told her that. I said, I'm 65 years old. Anybody under 50 is a girl or a boy to me. Fuck it. If you don't like it, I don't give a shit. But we were talking about all the oddities going around about these events. And a couple people came to me and go, oh, that's too far. I can't listen to that. And
see,
all I
that's
have
the
to say to,
point.
yeah, that's the point. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do take a look at situations and I see patterns and I try to understand critically what's going on. And here's the things that trouble me about these three events. Butler, Pennsylvania, emotionally broken guy from a building far away shoots at Donald Trump. Charlie Kirk, young emotionally broken guy or confused guy from a building from a long distance. Dallas, Texas, another kid from a distance away, another building shooting into this building. It just seems. And here's the other thing: you're older, so you can maybe understand this. The whole idea that there was writings on the bullet. Now, the last time I heard of anybody writing names on the bullet were Old West movies or World War II movies, you know, fuck you,
Mhm.
Hitler, and the whole idea, it just seems like it's a setup. Like they said, yeah, the guy who shot into ICE had anti-ice engraved on the bullet. And then when you see the picture of the bullet, it was more like a Sharpie. And they went with anti-ice. And I'm thinking to myself, 29-year-old kid, mad at ice, he wrote anti-ice. That's like
Mhm.
those emails that sound like they were written in the 1950s. It just doesn't make sense. I'm not saying anything's fucked up, but you got to look at it and you got to go, why does that happen? Why does it happen on this situation? Why are they similar? Why is these notes and these engravings on bullets crop up all of a sudden very conveniently for Donald Trump and the Republicans? Now people will say, well, he wouldn't do something like that because people died and collateral damage. Motherfucker don't care about collateral damage. A million people died during COVID, so I'm not thinking he's worried about sacrificing a life or two.
No, I mean he's bombing boats off Venezuela, not
Well,
knowing who's
yeah,
in them. I mean, and since when is that a thing? I mean, granted, Obama sent the SEAL Team 6 against Osama bin Laden, but that was a standing order, dead or alive, right? Put out by George W. Bush, for example. So that was an operation that was always going to happen. But these things are like off the cuff. Go blow up some boats and stir up something. That's exactly what's happening here. Trump's calling that shot, and you know he is. And see, this is the problem when you control and this is the thing that the Trump administrations have shown us is that we need more controls on the presidency, not less. We don't
absolutely.
need to empower the president more. We need to constrain him because always before it was a matter of individuals who had some sort of self restraint and some sense of honor and some sense of morality. Trump has none of that. And there
Right.
are no constraints, especially when he is able to put in power people who are equally immoral. So whoever is, pulling the trigger or telling the pilots to pull the trigger on blowing up those boats is equally responsible with the president because they are going along with it. And at some point, if you don't have personal honor to stop, when I was in the military and when I was in basic training, they herded us into a movie theater and showed us a film. It was a reenactment of May Lai, And their message was, it is your responsibility to refuse to implement an immoral order. It's on you as the individual soldier, because in wartime, sometimes the people above you may lose their minds, like Callie did, or do whatever. But it falls on you. I was just following orders is not an excuse.
Well, and that gets us back to the current situation with our military and calling 800 generals and admirals into Virginia to meet with to Quantico, Virginia to meet with Pete Hegseth. When is that? How far does it have to go where they say, this is working against democracy. We've got to stand up to this. I'm hoping that a situation like this, and they sit with this guy and see what a clown he is, and he makes some kind of commandment that they need to do. Hopefully, that is the point when they say, look, it's very clear. These people are working against the Constitution and trying to undermine democracy. This is what is meant by the oath of office. We need to do something. I'm hoping that's the thing that presses the military in to say, at the very least, we ain't fucking doing that. What are you going
Yeah,
to
and
do about it?
the, the Joint Chiefs could sit down today and say, this has to stop. We go to the president and we say, you have to remove Pete Hegseth from this job, and you have to appoint someone with real military experience, a retired general, someone that we will approve of. We're not going to follow your orders anymore.
Yeah.
If you want your administration to survive, then believe me, we can take you down. You will do what we say. That's what it would take. They should call each other up and say, are we going to put up with this crap? We've dedicated our lives to protecting our country, and this guy is trying to destroy democracy.
Why hasn't that not happened yet? That's my question. I mean, it's not like there haven't been occasions where he's done things that are unconstitutional, putting the National Guard into LA and DC and such. Uh, why have those things not been the red lines?
That I'm not sure. And let's address that for a moment. He was going to go into Chicago until he got pushback, and they didn't.
Right,
So the other day he was talking about what was going on in Memphis, and they're not there.
right.
They had not gone there, but he was talking about how they're arresting people, and all the street people are calling him up and saying, "Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I can go outside again." He's talking about Memphis, and they're not there. They
Yeah.
haven't been deployed. I mean,
Well,
the guy is around the bend. This is what they should do. I mean, a different cabinet would have removed a president by now under
yeah,
Article 25. But the military needs to do it. And believe me, I'm no fan of military coups. I've never seen one that really worked out well. But in this case, it may be our last resort. You have to have the kind of military that will remove the offending party and immediately call for national elections.
absolutely. And you would hope that would happen. We've always been comforted by you know, from the moment he was elected president, we've been comforted by the idea that, well, the Republicans will only let it go so far. Wrong about that. We were comforted that the Supreme Court would do all the things according to rule of law. Wrong about that. We were under the belief that the military would let it only go so far. Well, it's gone pretty fucking far at this point, farther than I thought any of those groups would allow it to go. And that's what's troubling to me. I really thought Republicans would say, okay, we got the election. Let's just push this guy down and kick him to the curb eventually. But they haven't seemed to do it yet. They still think there's some value in Donald Trump. And I think you and I can see that he's a liability, not a asset. So why they don't see it, I don't understand. I was talking to somebody and they said, I don't think they'll realize it until after the 2026 election and they get their ass kicked. Well, if you're trying to save yourself, stop it before you get your ass kicked and try
Mhm.
to fix it. But they're so complicit that they're going to wait until the absolute worst moment and then they're going to say, okay, that's enough of Donald Trump. But it'll be too late for everybody.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I am seeing some, like, um, my state senator, Marsha, is not going to run for reelection to the Senate. She's going to run for governor of Tennessee. I'm seeing some pullback there. Maybe they're realizing that their time in the national spotlight is limited, so they're trying to regroup, um, on a smaller level or something. I'm not sure what's going on there, but um, it's a parlous time, as they say in Washington now, to be a politician. We are seeing people, we see at these town halls that the Republicans who are silly enough to have one, they get creamed because people are seeing what's going on. We have Trump yesterday telling, well, the tariff thing hasn't kicked in yet, so we're gonna help out our farmers. And then we're going to let them keep their workers in as long as they vouch for them, which is nothing but slavery redone. All of these things that he's doing, anyone who's paying attention has to realize that this will not hold.
Well, here's what people have to understand, and hopefully they've learned this lesson. Donald Trump says a lot of things. He says a lot of things to cover his ass for things he's fucked up. But guess what? Most of the time, he doesn't come through with it. Is he going to get a bailout for the farmers? I He says he is, but does he really follow through with these things? It's impossible to count on Donald Trump because he's constantly flailing around. Should he bail out the farmers? Well, he wouldn't have had to if he hadn't done what he's doing. And we hadn't heard about the tariffs for a while, only the people that are getting beat up by it. But then yesterday he comes out with more tariffs. I don't know if you
Yeah,
heard this. 100% on all pharmaceuticals coming from other countries.
yeah,
If you want to come and put a manufacturing plant in the United States, then you won't get tariffs. Well, even if they decided to do that, that would take so fucking long. We're going to pay a lot of money. And just by virtue of it being produced here in the States, it's going to be more money than we're used to paying anyway. Secondly, he's going to put 25% on furniture and cabinets and heavy trucks. I mean, what was the point of that? Did he have nothing else to fucking talk about?
who knows? It beats me. And number one, all that does, we know by now, all it does is make the price of everything go up. That's all it does. That's all it accomplishes. There's nothing else. It's like trickle down. Nothing trickles. You only get richer, rich people. Okay, I mean, this is knowable stuff. All right, it's knowable, and that people have done studies about it. Reputable people, not morons that he put in place to jump on Tylenol. Here's a guy who abused heroin for 14 years, and another guy who abuses Adderall, and they're going after Tylenol. Give me a break.
Well, with regards to these new tariffs, he's doing them quickly, October 1st for the pharmaceuticals and such.
Mhm.
And if I was to say this in any other administration, you think, that's you're crazy, you're cynical, and all that stuff. But I think a lot of these tariffs we're finding out weren't so much for economic purposes, it was for leverage to get some kind of payout from the foreign countries
Yeah,
to cover his ass. I mean, we've
yeah,
seen it before. We
yeah,
saw it in Europe. We saw it in Europe. And I'm wondering if he's thinking, I'm going to strong arm the pharmaceutical industry and the furniture industry and the truck industry and see if I can't get some accommodations. I mean, we saw it with ABC. He sues him for libel or whatever, um, and and they know they can win the case easily, but they give him 16 million bucks
yeah.
just to make it go away. Is that what he's doing with these people? Putting the pressure on at the last minute, and the pharmaceuticals say, "Listen, we'll give you 20 million under the table. Call this thing off." And then
Yeah,
he
I'm
says,
sure.
"We got great talks going on, so we're going to delay it." That's
Yeah.
just how he does business.
Right, and that's exactly what he's doing. Like this 16 million you mentioned, that goes to the future Trump library in Atlanta, right? I think it's where he's going to build it. Is that
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And anyway, but now he says he wants to build a hotel next to it. So he's even monetizing his presidential library. The first president ever to do anything remotely like that. If you don't think Trump is in it for the bucks, that alone shows you that he is. And he will do anything for it. He has no morality. He has no compunction. He has no filter. He is a total waste. He is the worst person who has ever lived in the last 50 years, at least, maybe 100. I'd put him right up there. You know, people, oh, he's not Hitler. Well, yeah, he is. I'm sorry. He is.
Pretty close, pretty close. And you know, the thing about it is this library thing, I'm going to make a
Mm-hmm.
prediction here. That library never gets built, and here's
Nah.
why. Because the money will be grifted and put in his pocket, and by the time they're ready to build a library, everything will come out about him and he will be an absolute fucking pariah. The last thing
Yeah.
people want to do is build some kind of memorial to that dumb fuck.
Well, Nixon got one. So who knows?
Yeah, but the thing about Nixon, if you go back to the 70s and we were watching this, everybody was watching Nixon and going, "Oh my, this is absolutely horrible. This is terrible. We hate Nixon. He was the most hated person in the country for the world for many years." Um, but what Nixon did in comparison is like 3% of what Donald Trump has done. You think
True.
they hated Nixon? They're gonna fucking hate Donald Trump.
Yeah, but Nixon did stuff that we didn't know about at the time that made him even worse. Like
Right.
the war on drugs was nothing but going after black people
Yeah.
because he saw them as enemies, and going after young people because he saw them as enemies. One was cocaine, which they supplied, by the way,
All right.
and the other marijuana, which they also supplied. But it was nothing. It was not a war on drugs. It was a war on his opponents. Sound familiar?
Well, that's it. And like you said, there's got to be more constraints on presidents. You know, we first started out with this memo in the FBI: you can't indict a sitting president or
Bullshit.
investigate a sitting president. And then we have the Supreme Court giving him this immunity thing. I think what people have to understand about that immunity thing after Donald Trump is said and done here, immunity doesn't cover everything. I mean, bribery, it doesn't cover
No,
bribery. There's a lot of things that Donald Trump could be prosecuted for when he leaves.
selling pardons, for example.
Oh, exactly. That's not immunity. That immunity was more limited than whenever I talk to somebody about the immunity, oh, Donald Trump can do anything. Well, not
No.
really. Not really. And especially when he's out of power and somebody wants to prosecute him, they could tie that motherfucker up in court in these things for decades. But he'll be dead by then. So maybe we'll go after his partners in crime, his administration, or even his family.
Well, remember, Nixon never saw a day in prison, but everybody else in his administration, including his attorney general, including his vice president, including all of his close advisors, they all did. And
Yeah.
that is the important thing to remember. I would hope they would remember that and start thinking, oh, wait a minute. If history repeats itself, I am totally fucked.
Well, there was a certain amount of lockdown for Nixon. Nixon
Yeah,
loved having people love him. He didn't
he
get
paid
the
a
opportunity.
price.
Yeah, he didn't get the opportunity to walk around and say, "I'm the former president. Here's a book, and I'm going to give talks." Everybody hated the motherfucker, and it's going to be worse for Donald Trump if he survives to see those days after he's no longer president. And I hope he doesn't.
I'm still pushing for Thanksgiving. That's my prediction.
Well, I'm hoping and praying that that's the case. I wanted to talk about the budget thing. This is interesting. We've
Yeah.
got a budget um,
Before we get
deadline.
into that, I really want to talk about that. But just to finish up about Hegseth and so
Sure,
forth,
sure.
this may have something to do with the whole Antifa thing because I'm seeing that this is the push that Trump wants. He wants to be able to go after all his enemies under the branch of a war on Antifa, and I think Hegseth is going to try to bring these generals in line to say it's a war, it's a domestic war. We're going after these people much like they did in the 50s with, quote, communists, which there were some. Yeah, there were, but not to the extent that everybody thought they were. I mean, um, uh, when I was in high school, we had um, a book called None Dare Call It Treason by Pastor Jonathan Storm, I think his name was, and another one by J. Edgar Hoover. And there were a couple of others that we weren't required to read them, but they showed up a lot in book reports and so forth. And they were very much anti communist and so forth.
Yeah.
And you were supposed to be looking around for the communists hiding everywhere. And it was a very paranoid time. That's what they want to do here. That's what they want to silence the left by making them the enemy. And you know, they're doing that. They're trying to say that all of this violence is on the left, when of course it's on the right. It's like 61% to 30 to 29% so far. And even that 29% is divided down. Okay. So that it's not all left, but 60% of political violence in this country is by right wing white males, period. But now they want to go after this made up group, Antifa, that, and I wonder if they were not going to try to bring the military in and to it under the guise of wartime. That's what I'm afraid of.
Yeah, that may be. When we hear people talking, when I hear people talking about him bringing these generals in, they're talking about all the nefarious, diabolical, scary shit that he could be doing. But let's look at the track record of Pete Hegseth and Donald Trump. More than likely, it's performative and it's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
That's more, I mean, that's what history would tell us. That's what they do. They do stupid performative stuff because they have no courage to do a lot of these things. Everything they do is under the cover of darkness. So they bring these people uh, in the in the light, and generally it doesn't have much substance. Generally, it's about a performance, and that's what I'm expecting out of these people coming in. I don't know if it's going to be nefarious or dangerous. It could be, but I think it's more performative and trying to send a message because that's what they do.
I hope that's the case, but if they're getting desperate, they have to see that the midterms are coming, and it's like the winter is coming on Game of Thrones. I mean, they see this is what it's going to be a bloodbath. I really do believe that, and we'll see what happens. But if they see that, they may think they have to have some sort of Hail Mary play here to try to avoid that.
Well, you know more about history than I do, and I heard a lot of people saying this is reminiscent of the Night of Long Knives, that he's going to
Yeah.
come in here, he's going to decapitate the military. You think that's a reasonable possibility?
Well, as I remember the Night of Long Knives, that's when he turned on his own, the brown shirts that had put him in power. We're talking about Hitler here. And he had the mainstream military, so forth, go after the people that would actually put him in power. So I wouldn't mind if they did that.
You mean going after MAGA? Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. You talked about the cracks in Donald Trump's efforts here, and we are seeing a lot of MAGA going, wait, what the fuck? His whole behavior around the Charlie Kirk thing, not really giving a shit, just using it for an opportunity to try to sell whatever he's selling. I think there are Republicans and even some of the Trumplafucks that aren't so deep into the cult that are just going, what the fuck's going on here? Even the Jimmy Kimmel thing had some of these Republicans going, no, like you said, Ted Cruz, and even some of the rank and
Rand
file
Paul.
people, Rand
Rand
Paul.
Paul was in there too. Mhm.
He's exposing himself for who he is, and my experience with narcissists is from a distance. In short term, they look good, they look attractive, they're appealing. But once you get close up and you get to know them a little bit better and you get more experience and time with them, the cracks show, and then people go, "Holy fuck, this guy's a nut." And I get a sense that some of that is happening in the Republican Party at this point.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think we're even seeing pushback on the whole Charlie Kirk thing that I did
Yeah.
not expect. And it's not from the left, quite frankly. Um,
No.
and so who knows? You know, maybe we are at a turning point. I hope so. You wanted to get into the financials, though, right? The
Well, the financials and the Jeffrey Epstein thing, because they're
Yeah.
tied together in this situation. We know By the time people hear this, the country is set up for a shutdown in 3 days,
Yeah.
3 days or so on September 30th. And that is freaking people the fuck out. They're going, what happens if it shuts down? And the Democrats are trying to play tough. No, we're not going to do it unless you take away cuts from Medicaid and add money to ACA. We're standing strong. Now we've heard that before from Democrats, and then Chuck Schumer and the rest kind of cave in. Well, we don't want the country to shut down, and so as they're getting stronger about pushing back, the Republicans keep going, well, it's the Democrats' fault. Well, explain to me how it's the Democrats' fault if you control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. You're
Yeah.
not the Democrats' fault.
They just
And
need Democratic votes to keep it open. So
right,
no, it's not the Democrats' fault.
it's not the Democrats' fault. And so they keep trying to push that narrative. That narrative's not working. They know if it shuts down, they will get the blame. So what's the next step?
Well,
Donald
that
Trump does what Donald Trump says. He comes out and he says, listen, if this country shuts down, we're going to have mass firings of federal employees. That wasn't for the Republicans. That was for the Democrats. You sensitive fuckers, if you don't want these people to lose their jobs, you better get in line and do what we want you to do. That's what he does every time. That's what he's doing now. And this is the time when the Democrats got to stand up and say, fuck you. Because at this point, we can't negotiate with these people. We almost have to let them burn it to the fucking ground and let them pay the price for doing so.
Yeah, I hate to say that. I hate to hear that because, quite frankly, I'm vulnerable. So is everyone else.
Yeah.
I have money in the stock market. I have, investments that would suffer and so forth. So I don't want it to happen if they can avoid it. But quite frankly, Democrats are asking for very little here. Um, the the big thing to me is the ACA funding, because as it stands now, literally millions of, we already know they're getting rid of Medicaid. So, millions of people are going to be off Medicaid there. If you take the ACA too, then because premiums could go up by a huge amount. They will, as a matter of fact, unless more money is put into the ACA. Of people who finally got insurance through the ACA will not be able to afford it. And that means hospitals, clinics, nursing homes will fold. The ones that weren't going to be taken out by Medicaid will be by this. If you don't have insurance, you do not go to the hospital. There is no revenue generated to pay the doctors, the nurses, and so forth. They close their doors. And most of the people, and people who are not at least middle class high, will be without medical care. It can't happen. So the Democrats have to hold the line here, or what's the point?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Schumer said, well, we don't know what could happen if we shut down the country. So we're going to capitulate a little bit here. Well, we've seen what happened when you didn't shut down the country. Something worse than shutting down the country has happened. So fucking learn a lesson, toughen up, or get the fuck out of the way. One of the things, too, we're seeing all these violent situations. We've got Charlie Kirk and we've got Dallas with the detention center. You start taking away people's medical and pharmaceutical needs, and people have a choice of either they have no choice, they're going to die or they're going to get debilitated and so sick that they can't move. That's going to cause a lot of anger in this country. And you're going to see those town hall meetings become decidedly more dangerous because when
Mm-hmm.
people don't have anything to fucking lose, you might as well take your last shot at whatever. And the Republicans are so scared of Donald Trump and they're not scared of the constituents. Hopefully they're starting to see that who they really need to be afraid of with the Jimmy Kimmel thing and all this. Because the people they need to be afraid of are the people they're hurting every day just because they want to support Donald Trump no matter what. This could get really ugly when people start losing family members or families have to take in family members and pay for their bills and stuff like that. This is going to be an incredible problem for a lot of people in this country. And if they've got nothing to lose, I'm afraid of what might happen with that.
Yeah, I mean that's how revolutions happen. They
Yeah.
only happen when you have nothing left to lose because they're so disruptive, right? We narrowly avoided a revolution in the 1930s. Had not Roosevelt been elected and been able to put the reforms in place that gave people hope, there would have been a revolution along the lines of the Russian Revolution. I believe that 100%. And I think history would back me up on that. And as you say, when you have nothing left to lose, then that's when the pitchforks and the torches come out and they march on the castle.
And people are really angry right now and really scared. And a perfect microcosm or illustration is with the Jimmy Kimmel thing. Very
Yeah,
minor. Jimmy Kimmel didn't have that many ratings, but it pissed people off to the point where they were able to marshal millions and millions of people in 72 fucking hours to basically shut down Disney and make them capitulate to the people.
my wife and I did it.
Yeah.
Um, both Hulu and Disney. We sent a message. Um, Part of that because you have to is what it
Yeah.
comes down to. And I can alter my viewing habits, no problem. The other thing that's brought out by this Jimmy Kimmel thing is that there are still um, bunches of stations that are not airing Jimmy Kimmel because they're owned by right-wing organizations like Sinclair and Nexstar. Okay, we need to break up Sinclair and Nexstar. No entity that controls multiple stations should be allowed to have a political viewpoint, an exclusionary political viewpoint. I mean, Sinclair requires their news directors to read editorials that are written for them at the home office, and they're always right wing bullshit. That alone should make them sell off their properties and dissolve the company. I'm sorry. If corporations are people, then they can be executed. And that's what needs to happen with Sinclair and Nexstar.
Well, and I think Sinclair and Nexstar is going to have to say, okay, we'll put Kimmel back on because these are all individual stations and individual markets. Um, the only thing that keeps them alive, and let's be honest, local television, local radio is dying every fucking month.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, all I would
they're
have
good.
to do is
If
call
they're
three auto three auto sales company and one big furniture store, and that those are the advertisers on
right,
those
right.
on that local TV station in Sinclair.
But
Boom!
but
It's not hard.
over and above that, if they start not running Jimmy Kimmel or other shows they don't like, what's the alternative? Local shit? That
Yeah,
hasn't worked since the 50s or early 60s. The people will go away in droves from watching stuff with shitty programming.
I
I think
personally think broadcast is dead anyway.
I do
Um, I,
too. I do too.
I think they should just liquidate them and turn them into parks. I don't know. I mean, who watches broadcasts? Uh,
Well, it's funny when I was what, like 21, 22, something like that. There was a radio station in Minneapolis, WWTC, and it
I
was kind of a
recall him.
golden rock radio station.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, a friend of mine and I went in to talk to um, kind of a goofy general manager and said, "Hey, here's the deal. How much would it cost us to do a sports talk show on the weekends?" And he says, "You know what? You don't pay us. I tell you what, you take half the ads and we'll take half the ads," thinking he'll make more money off the ads from our show.
Yeah.
So he just gave us 2 hours a week to do it. And we're doing it. And it didn't generate a lot of income because it wasn't known as a sports station. And, it was fun, but I made a couple bucks and they didn't make much, if any, bucks. And then they bring in a new general manager. His name is Sam Sherwood. He was very
Uh,
famous in Minneapolis as a GM. He calls me up and he's got kind of a smirk on his face. He says, "Yeah, Mike, you know that deal you have with WWTC?" And I said, "Yeah, yeah, the sports thing and on the weekends." And he goes, you've been around a little while and you're a smart guy. You understand why we can't do that anymore, right? And so he canceled the sports show, which was fine. It was taking up too much time anyway. But he comes to me and he says, "We've got better plans for this station." I go, "Oh, really? What are you going to do?" Because it's AM, and AM was kind of out of style now. FM was everything. What are you going to do with this AM station? So we're going to make it all weather because people really like weather on the radio. I go, "You understand that won't work, right?" So why won't it work? I said, because you take ratings in increments of 15 or 20 minutes, nobody's going to listen to that station more than 3 minutes.
Yeah,
You're not going to have any fucking ratings. And he says, "Well, no, I think I've been in this business for a long time. I'm going to do it." They went to all weather for about 3 months and then they went back to fucking golden rock music. My point is what happened with AM at that time is going to be all of broadcasting. They're going to have these platforms to broadcast things, and whatever they broadcast is either going to be bullshit or they're not going to be able to come up with something.
yeah. I mean, I saw it with religious programming, almost religious and political. That's where the AM went. They ran these pre-produced religious programs back to back to back to back. When my first job in radio, I was out in the middle of a field in a cornfield in Iowa, and across the field was what had once been a TV station that was now a radio station, and blasted all the way up into Canada. And all they had one employee who changed the tapes on the religious broadcasting, and that was it, and an engineer that kept it running. Right. Well, that's what we're looking at here for the future of broadcast at this rate.
Why would you buy a broadcast station for millions and millions of dollars to cover a small area of an audience that's not going to listen anyway, when you could just do the same thing by putting up a YouTube channel, putting good people on there, and have a worldwide audience for
That's a good
free?
question.
It
Yeah,
makes no fucking sense.
yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, that
Broadcast is dying.
yeah. Well, the guy you mentioned, I was once in a meeting with him and another guy. His first name was Shell. I don't remember. You know who I mean. He
I
was,
know.
another guy. There were three or four of them in there that our engineer brought in to advise our public radio station, and they pontificated about all of this bullshit. And I sat in a meeting. It was time for me to go because I had another job, and I got up and I said, "Look, I appreciate all your experience, but you're talking about broadcasting. This is public radio. It's not the sewer you operate in." And I left. you know, One of my proudest moments because these guys every one of them came out of sales, and that's all they knew. All they
Yeah.
knew about programming was it was something to hang a commercial on or something. They didn't had no idea of quality. Had no idea of how to relate to an audience or anything else. So their advice was ridiculous and not needed, and fortunately not taken.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I wanted to get back to the shutdown and how it ties in with Jeffrey Epstein files. You mentioned before that we had that special election in Arizona that got another Democrat in the House, which
Yeah,
also gave us another signatory on the discharge petition to allow that bill to go around Mike
right.
Johnson, go to the floor, and people would vote on it. Mike Johnson is flailing around now too. He says, you know what he said? He said, "Well, maybe we'll take a break,
And not
you
see
know,
her. Yeah.
and not seat her right away."
Mhm.
But how do you do that within 3 days? You
Well,
got
the
a
government
government
shut down.
shutdown. He doesn't know what the fuck to do.
Mhm.
If he seats her and he has to seat her, then he's going to have to do the discharge thing. And let me ask you if I'm right about this. Now, the discharge goes to the bill to the House. Say it passes, that they can release the files. That's
Yeah.
not the end of it, right? The
No.
end of it is the Senate, and the Senate has to pass it. And we don't know if the Senate will pass it.
Well, I
However,
don't think they will. I think the House can release what they have on their own.
okay,
This is what
but at
I
the
think, but I may
but
be
at the
wrong.
same time, isn't this kind of a performance too? It's not getting the files released because we're not sure if they can do that. It's getting people on the record voting whether you want to release the files or not release the files. And that's the big fear right now. It's not releasing the files, it's having to take ownership of what you believe and taking that into the 26 midterms.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, everybody realizes that what the Republicans are doing is protecting Donald Trump. I
Right.
mean, if Donald Trump is not guilty, why not release the files? It's that simple. I mean, it's always been that with Donald Trump. I mean, if you're not guilty of something, then you welcome the trial, you welcome the revelation that you are in fact innocent. And if you are innocent, that can be proved. But he cannot prove he's innocent because he's, as they say, guilty, guilty, guilty. So it's
No,
they
but
are protecting him, and everybody knows it.
and I think it's more than that. I think it's not just Donald Trump. There
No,
are a lot of wealthy, powerful people that are involved in this. And the question is, why haven't they been investigated, indicted, and prosecuted? None of them.
exactly,
Zero
exactly.
have.
Well,
Only,
go
and
ahead.
they're trying to protect them too, because that means money in their pockets too. It's not just Donald Trump. Of course, Donald Trump, because he doesn't want it, but it's a lot of people that are putting pressure on these fucks.
Yeah, and then some of them are Democrats, and I'm fine. Put them in prison. If they did it, put them in prison. I'm fine with that. That's what the Democrats are saying. That's what liberals are saying. If they need to be punished, punish them. I mean, it's like what happened with the Democratic senator who was um,
Menendez?
Menendez. Yes, uh, liberals did not protect him.
No,
No, we did not because he was guilty and he suffered the
of course.
consequences. It's the same with this. If people need to be indicted, they need to be indicted. I maintain, though, if you look at who stood behind Trump at his inauguration, that's who is running the country, and that's who does not want the files released because a bunch of them are on it, quite simply. And others, people that may not even be with us anymore, whose reputation would be besmirched. Who knows how many religious leaders? Who knows how many politicians and industrialists and techno people? How many of those are on this list? We don't know, but nobody wants it released, and for the simple reason that they don't want to be brought to justice. So that's who is that's why they aren't being released. If it was just Trump, I think they would have let it go long ago and suffered that little blip, which it would have been. But when there's so many people involved here over so many years, and quite frankly, there's so much information that we have that isn't out. There's financial records of people paying Jeffrey Epstein, and there is no record of him doing any business, of any real business, taking
Right.
money they gave him and investing it and giving them a return. It doesn't happen. So,
Well, I think they see it as kind of opening a Pandora's box. Like you said, the
exactly.
financial aspects, there's $1.5 billion floating around between four banks, then you've got other international leaders tied to this. This is a Pandora's box if it opens. It's not just going to kill Donald Trump, it's going to cause a huge upheaval in this country. And people will finally recognize these rich fucks think they can do whatever they want. And now the people will say, we got to fight back against this. This thing with Jeffrey Epstein is far bigger, I believe, than old white men abusing young girls. That's
Oh,
horrible in its own right, but it's bigger than that. This is a money process, people making money. And some people have even suggested, with his pageants and all this stuff, maybe Donald Trump was making money by providing girls to Epstein. We don't know if that's true, but open the files. Let's find out.
I believe that that is absolutely the truth. I think his involvement with the beauty pageants was for that reason only. This man has no morality, none. He would have trafficked his own daughter if he could made a payday out of it.
Well, and the thing is, the idea that Donald Trump, as we know Donald Trump right now, his only connection, he says he has no connection to Jeffrey Epstein, but even if his only connection he gets exposed for is abusing girls. That's horrible. But you can't tell me Donald Trump, as we know Donald Trump right now, knowing that there's $1.5 billion popping around and there's regular money coming through this process, people are paying money to Jeffrey Epstein. The idea that Donald Trump isn't going to get a taste of that, that's fucking
Exactly.
crazy.
Yeah. No, I think they were business partners in more ways than one. I really, really do. And we know what this guy, we have seen the morality of this guy. He's sleeping with a porn star while his wife's having his baby. I mean,
Right.
this is his morality.
It absolutely is. So what does Mike Johnson is not the finest Speaker of the House. He's not qualified to be the Speaker of the House. So he's got this issue. Seat this woman, get the discharge, expose all the Republicans who don't want the files released, and then they're fucked in 2026. Or do we take a break and um, let the country shut down? Because if they take a break now and they don't seat this woman, because this should seat her today, like a day after or two
Yeah,
days after. It should be done within 24, 48 hours. So if they don't do that, but they shut down, that tells you more why Donald Trump came out and says, well, if we shut down, we're going to have mass firings. It's a panic move, it's a
sure it is.
bully move, and it's intended for the Democrats to be afraid. I just hope to God for once these pussies aren't afraid.
Well, I do think courts could shut that down. I mean, they have already intervened in some firings and so forth. And so that could actually happen. So I think it's a bluff on his part. He refused to meet with the Democrats to even negotiate, to hear what demands they might have. Or he's the big negotiator, right? Wow, why is he so reluctant to do that? It's a panic move, just as you say, and we who knows how it's going to sort out. It may. I hope the government doesn't shut down. I think when you do that, Moody's has already downgraded the U.S. government financially once
Yeah.
from AAA down one. This could do another one. I mean, if you are closing down the government and you are not paying your debts, which is what happens, and it's not just the Social Security check to me, but it's also payments to international the people who have investments in the U.S. That stops too.
Well, as I understand Social Security, there's a system in place, even in a shutdown, people
Yeah,
still get their Social Security payments. So
in
if
theory.
people are worried about that, in theory, yeah, you don't know with Donald
If
Trump.
there's
Uh,
nobody there to do it, though, is the thing. I
yeah.
mean, is it automated? Is AI taking care of it? I don't know. I mean, I think that's where they're going anyway. I think this is why they want all of these people fired, is just so they can put AI in place, and that's it.
So if he does this mass firing and there is a shutdown, again, my question is, where's the red line? I mean, everything that Donald Trump has done since he's been in office, a normal situation with a normal Congress, they would have kicked his ass out for any
Yeah,
one of those things. But he does all these things and they just stand there with their hands in their pockets, playing with them, doing nothing.
well, there's no authority. He's got the Supreme Court. He has Congress. So what is the red line? I mean, who is the enforcer? There is no enforcer. Is the
That's the
problem?
problem. That absolutely is is the problem. But you were talking about Chicago, how he was talking about, we'll show you why we're called the War Department now and we're all tough, but they don't go in. They
Yeah,
don't go in. And why? Because they got pushback. They got scared because Pritzker said, fuck you, come and see what happens. And
yeah,
they don't do it. Learn a lesson from this. You always, the Democrats with Chuck Schumer and stuff, always pull back and give them what they want. Learn a lesson from J.B. Pritzker in Illinois. Push back and see what happens. Call their fucking bluffs and see what happens. They always bail. They always chicken out. Taco Donnie. You
yeah.
got to call the bluff. If you're not man enough or woman enough to call the bluff, you're going to get your ass kicked over and over again.
Yeah, and we see that in California with Newsom
Mm-hmm.
standing up to him, ridiculing him, and which has to drive him in. insane that
Yeah.
he is able to do that so effectively. And I get a great deal of joy from that, actually. And I also like watching the Fox people fumble and, oh, he shouldn't do that. He looks like a fool. But and then there's Trump. He's just imitating Trump. So they just said Trump is a fool. I mean, it's it's fun.
Well, this week coming up, we're in the weekend now, but with this week coming up, there's a lot of fucking shit going on. The shutdown, the party with the 800 generals, the the economy in general, the tariffs, the new tariffs coming up October
The
1st.
bailing out the farmers.
Is he really going to do that, though? I mean, he
Well,
says it.
he says he is, but does he have the money that he says he does? Not really.
Right.
I mean, this is the thing. He can say he has $19 trillion, but he probably doesn't. I mean, a lot
No.
of this is just imaginary. It's like the
And he,
300 million people who died from drug overdoses when we only have 330. It's that kind of shit. He makes up these figures just out of thin air.
he says things to get out of situations. He very rarely follows through with them. Um, but it's to understand, he said, well, with all this money we're making off the tariffs, we could probably help to bail out the farmers. Well, why do you have to bail out the farmers? Because you
Oh,
fucked
but
up.
till it kicks in, he said. So the
Yeah.
tariffs, but he never says what it is. What is going to kick in? You've already got the tariffs, right?
And
But
understand who's truly bailing out the tariffs. He thinks tariffs are coming from foreign countries. It's us. It's
yeah.
the extra money we pay is what's going in the coffers of this alleged hundreds of millions, if not trillions of dollars for the tariffs. Just understand where it came from. It came from us. It's higher taxes from us that are going to bail out the farmers because Donald Trump did something to fuck it up. If he'd just left it alone, we wouldn't have to bail anybody out. The farmers wouldn't be going out of business. And if you understand that, then you understand the dismay that people like Ed and I have with how stupid people can be in this country.
Yeah, and there's so much going on. I mean, I didn't live through the 1930s, but I'm familiar with a lot about it. I've read a lot about it because I always thought that this is going to come around again, folks. And so let's know what actually went on. Uh, during the Dust Bowl years, when all the Okies had to head west, right? The reason they had to do that was because the banks foreclosed on their property because they
Right.
had to get loans to plant and so forth. And you have a few years where you can't plant. Pretty soon you've got nothing. They foreclose. You have to move. This is happening right now with farmers. And guess who's investing? Peter Thiel and J.D. Vance, among others. So yeah, this is not necessarily accidental. A lot of this sometimes is planned.
Well, that was my question. The idea of having corporations like Peter Thiel and JD Vance buying out these family farms. What's the motivation then for Donald Trump to bail them out? He doesn't need
None.
any from them. And if he wants to perpetuate this thing where corporations are buying the farms, that's why I'm saying, is he really going to bail them out? Or is he going to not bail them out and say, those fucking Democrats wouldn't let me do it? That's what I think is more likely to happen.
Of course it is, and then the corporations will buy them. And family farm is largely a myth anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
mostly corporate. Now, there's still some that aren't, but this will probably be the death knell for the family farm unless Democrats get back in power and actually able to do something to remedy the situation. I mean, we could do it. We could restore U.S. aid in a moment and start shipping that stuff out again. We're not letting it rot or burn it,
Yeah.
which is insane, of course. We could cancel tariffs and start exporting soybeans to again. We could do that. Um, we just have to have the votes to do it, and the only way we get the votes if you and me and everybody else vote blue.
Absolutely. Well, do you think, the soybean thing is a big deal? It happened the first term, it's happening this term. China isn't buying, they would spend $20 billion a year on soybeans, and now they're spending nothing.
Yeah.
That's a big percentage of the soybean crops, and it's um, costing a lot of money. And because there's a lot of soybeans now, it drops the price in addition to having a smaller cut of the pie. Um, if we changed everything now, would China, who's buying soybeans elsewhere now, what would be the motivation for them to come back to America? I don't,
The
say
motivation
for,
would be us selling them at a lower price.
there you go. So they still fucking lose. They're
Yeah,
already selling it at a price that's almost not profitable.
right.
There's no quick fix to the farmers, and
No,
whether they bail them out or not, I have a feeling if they do bail them out, it won't be enough.
no. They might do some kind of band-aid kind of thing, but at this point, without that outlet of USAID and others, it's not going to work. Farms that have been in families for 200 years will no longer be there.
And people will say to me, "Well, you don't have any sympathy for the farmers. They're losing their farms. They're losing all their money." And this is what I have to say about it. And it sounds very mean to say this. Farmers saw what they got from Donald Trump in the first term. They still voted for him in 2024, and they're getting exactly, if not more, than what they got in the first term. To me, it seems like going through these problems didn't teach them anything. So if we really want to truly teach them something, like I said before about the other situation, you got to let the fucker burn down. Apparently, that's what it takes for these people to understand.
Well, yeah, and then once it's burned, I don't know. I mean, I look at the southern states in particular. Well, Oklahoma, Nebraska, these states are not technically southern, but they're kind of in the
Red.
same mind. Yeah, they're red, and they have been that way for some time, and yet their standard of living continues to go down. When the Republicans have been in charge, and the same here in my home state of Tennessee, when they have been in charge for many, many years, and everything keeps going further and further down, you should wake up and say, wait a minute, what is the constant here? Oh, yeah, Republicans. Okay.
You would think,
Uh,
but it's been
but
decades.
but they don't see that because the Republicans have taken over the church and they have weaponized racism. And that quite frankly, and the two are involved, by the way, and that is what keeps the South red. It's racism, it's racism, it's racism supported by the I'm going to say evangelicals, but it's not just the evangelicals. It's the fundamentalist churches. It's racism, racism, racism.
Well, I get a kick out of the evangelicals and the people that follow Charlie Kirk. Charlie Kirk says, "Well, I'm a Christian, so I love this guy because he's a Christian. But if you're a racist, misogynist, anti-Semite, sexist, you're not following Christian rules, so I don't call you a Christian." So these people are following and living the lives of fake Christians for whatever
They
that's
have
worth.
Well, they
I'm
have
special because I'm
rewritten,
Christian.
yeah, they have rewritten the tenets of Christianity. It's quite simple. It's not the Sermon on the Mount. It's some kind of Old Testament eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth bullshit.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. All right, Ed, I'm going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. Thank you for coming on. Let people know how they can find you. If they haven't found you by now, get the fuck on it. Um,
But one thing I got to say, I posted something last night, and it was very simple. I just said a country or a society, no, a country that has both too many homeless and too many billionaires is a fail. It will soon be a a failed society. I put some
yeah,
music behind it and I posted it. And then I forgot about it. 6 hours later, I go in, it has no views, zero views.
that's weird.
So I just deleted it and put something up else, thinking, well, maybe, and I had 500 views on the next one like that. That tells me
Yeah.
who's pulling. The billionaires are the ones. Those are the enemy, and
Have you, have you, have you,
the algorithm noticed that I was comparing billionaires and homeless, and they shut it down.
Have you gotten any community
Oh,
guideline violations?
I got one. I got one with that they took down. I appealed, but they wouldn't put it back up. In which I um, made a correlation between the shooting of Charlie Kirk and the assassination of the German diplomat Ernst von Rath. He was killed in Paris, and that was what was used to weaponize feeling against the Jews that resulted in Kristallnacht. I put that up, and they said it was against community standards, even though it is just history.
You know, it's weird. When they changed the guidelines, I thought I was going to be out of here soon. But in the 10 days, 2 weeks that this has been going on since the change of the guidelines, I mean, you know how I talk. I'm kind of blunt and I say what the
Yeah,
fuck I'm thinking. Not one guideline violation, not one
yeah.
video taken down. And actually, if anything, my videos are getting more views than they did before the guidelines changed.
Hmm.
That's weird.
Yeah, it is weird. Mine are a little down, but I mean that could be quality. I mean, I'll be honest. Maybe mine aren't as good. I don't know. The
No,
one
they are.
the one was before the guideline change, by the way. So I think it's just because I use the word Jewish and the word and Nazi in the same thing. I think that was probably what the algorithm picked up.
But we want free speech, fuckers. We want
Yeah.
free speech. Just don't say Jewish. Don't say Epstein. Don't say Trump. Don't say anything bad against Trump. I mean, that's the whole thing. I don't know what's going to happen when the oligarchs finally take over TikTok. I'm just going to ride it for all it's worth and
Yeah.
promote YouTube and the other places I'm at, assuming that at some point this will go by the wayside. I could be wrong, but who the fuck knows?
Well, see, I purposely went along with your stratagem. Just do what you want to do, and if they dump you, they dump you. There's other platforms, you know.
Absolutely, absolutely. All right. Well, thank you, Ed. For those of you listening, thanks for taking the time. I hope you have a great day. We will talk to you again tomorrow.